Hello, everyone. Welcome, my fellow EthStakers, to the Ethereum EthStaker Merge Validator Prep Workshop. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from. I'm here today with York and Remy Wah of the EthStaker Community, and today we're going to walk you through prepping up your validator. So all of those watching that are home solo stakers, we're here and excited for the merge, and we want to make sure that we're prepped and excited and confident going into the merge, that we know our machines are going to be ready and safe and working and testing properly. So welcome today, and hello, York and Remy.
Hello, Invalidator. How you doing?
Lovely. I'm excited to be here. It's great finally being able to talk to about the merge in very real, tangible terms instead of hoping that it'll come. So this is great. It's a happy day. So one thing I want to do before we get started and dive into the technicals is to just, in very simple, general terms, talk about the merge in relation to solo staking, just to kind of answer some 101 questions. And that is, why am I even having to touch my validator in the first place? What is this upgrade really that important? What happens if I were to miss this and just sort of be lazy with it and ignore it?
I think the short answer is like the merge is one of the biggest protocol change Ethereum has ever done before, right?
Absolutely.
I don't know, Thorsten, if you could confirm this, but like this is one of the biggest change, and it involves so many parts that are very hard to explain all at once. But essentially, the miners are gonna get, or they're gonna get expelled, and they're gonna be replaced by the validator, right? And so, in order to do that, we need to coordinate a lot of different parts, and one of them is your machine. Like as a staking machine, you have to do a few steps just to ensure that you're working fine. And like those steps are, some of them are pretty required. Like you don't have a choice in doing them.
So I would say, after Remy has now scared you as to how big it is the biggest change Ethereum has ever made. However, the changes you need to make to your setup are actually not that onerous, I would say. Definitely doable for anyone. Do you have to do it? If you like money and you want your validators to keep earning, then yes.
So one of the risks that will probably happen to everyone who's a validator is that if you don't do some of these steps, your validator might stop working, and you might be similar to when you're down, when your machine is down,
So
right?
you'll
So
be offline, right?
you'll be offline.
But the good thing is, all that will happen is you'll get an offline penalty.
Yeah.
Just come back online.
And
If you're not too
so,
worried about a day of downtime any other time, you don't have to be too worried now.
yeah, and offline penalties are not too harsh, but
By
as
design.
there are many people, as there's more people being offline, they get harsher. And so likely after the merge, we'll see probably like a bunch of people coming to help us and help them with
Absolutely.
coming up with some support for how they can update their machines, or how they can just adjust a few things to make sure that everything works.
So to that harsher penalty, that Remy is right. That happens when more than 1/3 of the network are offline. The Ethereum devs have said, look, we can only do so much cat herding. We will not delay the merge just because people aren't ready. An extra month isn't going to get them any more ready. So if the merge goes through and all that happened is that we're not finalizing because people couldn't be bothered, we consider that a success. And then people will start losing money a little bit more rapidly because we're not finalizing, and then they will fix their shit, and then we will be finalizing, and then it's just regular offline penalties again. So I mean, that's a good message. If indeed greater than 1/3 of the network are down after merge because they didn't get their setup right or they didn't do anything at all, then yes, we will be non-finalizing, and then we will see increasingly harsh penalties, quadratically increasing over time for everyone who is offline. And that will hopefully swing a big enough whip to get people to fix their setups.
And it's hard to tell in advance, like if there's going to be like more than a third of the validators down, but I don't expect that many people not to be ready.
I expect that all the big guys will be ready,
Yeah.
right? All the node operators that do this professionally will be ready. And of course, everybody in the EthStaker Discord will be ready because they're that awesome. So there'll be a small amount of people who aren't.
Hopefully, yeah.
Perfect. All right. So we've established that this is probably in everyone's benefit to upgrade. So
We can also talk about the carrot, right? Here's the carrot.
Sure. Yeah.
You get priority fees. They're paid to you, to an ETH address of your choosing, directly into you cash every time you propose a block.
So you'll
Why
get
not?
more rewards, and you'll get them as soon as they're available, and you'll be able to use them
Exactly.
right away.
Yeah. The regular staking rewards are still locked until sometime 2023. But this stuff, every block proposal, you get some ETH right away.
Yep.
Not bad.
So there's the plus, and we hope that'll be good for everyone.
All right. So why don't we get down to some nitty gritty here? Why don't we do we want to start with Samaire's guides?
Maybe we should like have a look at the prepare, how to prepare for the merge guide first,
great.
just to have like a bigger overview of what this is gonna look like.
Please.
So maybe I could share my screen here.
Okay.
If you would. So while he's doing that, we've done a little informal poll, and it seems most people are running either Prism and Geth or Lighthouse and Geth. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. But the guide that Remy has, this one right here, it is high level and works for any client combination.
And I'll paste it in the chat for people to find more easily. But the general overview on how to get prepared for the merge is this one. So the first item is to make sure you're running your own execution client. And we talked about this previously, but we'll reiterate this. You need to run your own execution client. Like, it's not optional, because after the merge, there's going to be this relationship, which is going to be pretty much one-on-one between your consensus client and your execution client, and you'll need to run both of them. They don't need to be ran on the same machine, but...
Hey, Fizz.
Hello, Fizz. How you doing? Those clients can have to be kind of close to each other, because they'll need to talk, and they'll need to synchronize, and like they'll need to be in sync with each other.
So this is the core of the merge, right? Right here. What is happening in the merge is that the transactions, the things users do, are now secured per proof of stake. And because that is the case, you now need to run your own execution client. Where previously, we really only had a consensus layer running, and we were just proving that that works, right? And it was just kind of talking to itself, and nothing was happening on there. Nobody could send transactions, interact with contracts or anything. That's changing. That's the big change. That's why you need it. Previously, this thing did almost nothing. It was just being queried. It was just an RPC provider to tell the consensus client somebody has deposited. Now it needs to actually say, hey, this block is valid, right? This is the legit block. You can vote for it. Or if it's your time to propose, hey, here's a block you can go propose with transactions in it.
The second point here is to make sure your Ethereum clients are updated. So one of the reasons why you want to make sure your clients are updated is because it's a general good practice to keep your client updated. But the main one is that there'll be some network configuration details that are included with these updates that you will need for the merge, right? And so, for instance, we have the girly merge coming up soon, and some of these network configuration details are included in the client updates. So if you want to make sure you got the right details, you got to make sure your clients are updated. And so as we approach the different merge for the different network, your clients will get updated, and you will be asked to update them as well. So nothing special there, just make sure your client's updated. The third item here is to make sure you're using the new configuration options for your Ethereum clients. So I guess the main one here is with the execution, not the execution, but the engine API. So there's new flags and new options to configure your clients for the engine API, which is this new communication channel between your execution client and your consensus client.
Hey, Remy, just real quick, there are a couple questions in the chat here before you
Sure.
go too further. Can you just, in very simple general terms, define the difference between what an execution client is and what the consensus layer client is?
Yeah. So previously they were called ETH1 and ETH2 client. So if you're familiar with those terms, the ETH1 client would be the execution client and the ETH2 client would be your consensus client. But essentially, the execution client is your Geth or your Besu or your Netamine or your Aragon client, which tracks the different transactions on the network. And your consensus client is the client who's going to be your Prism, your Lighthouse, your Nimbus, your Teku, or your Lodestar client, which is mostly concerned about the beacon chain network.
So one thing that to make this really basic, right? The execution client is where all the transactions happen, all the user activity goes through there. And the consensus layer, which is now in a client, which previously was baked right into Geth. It had its own consensus layer. We're ripping it out and doing it proof of stake. We're putting it into a separate client. All that does is it says that block is next. So the consensus layer really is just concerned with what is the correct chain to follow, which block is next. And clearly that is a hard problem to solve in a distributed manner. And so there's money to be made for stakers in providing that service of saying which block is next.
Awesome, thank you.
Was that all the questions?
For right now, yeah, that's relevant to this section.
Awesome. So if you guys have any other questions, make sure to ask them and we'll try to interrupt and try to answer them as we get them. So I talked about the new configuration options. The fourth point here is to make sure you have a configured Jwt token file for the engine API. So this new engine API that we talked about, the new communication channel between your execution client and your consensus client, has to be authenticated with this Jwt token. And so you have to configure it. The next point would be to configure a fee recipient address. So as the merge occur and after the merge, your validator is going to be the one choosing the blocks that are included in the chain. And as you do that work, you'll also be able to receive the transaction tips that are included in those transactions. And so you need to configure an address to receive those tips, right? And so the fee recipient address is that address that you'll need to configure it on your clients. And the sixth item here is to configure an Mav solution. So Mav is this maximal extractable value that is possible to do on these kind of blockchain. And as a block builder or someone who chooses which block is included into the chain, you have this possibility to get more value if you choose to include MEV transactions.
Right. I want to just briefly expose on 4, 5, 6. So JWT, the JSON Web Token. The reason this exists is narrowly to protect against the following. You're running your execution client and your engine API through a configuration mistake is now exposed to the internet. That's it. Just so that people can't hammer on that and do nasty things to you, since that is now, a really important part of your staking outfit. That's really all it is, and all it is a little short random string that the two agree on, just to protect against that misconfiguration. Fee recipient, as Remy said, that's where your monies go, your priority fees and your MEV. And then 6, MEV boost. We'll briefly go into what you would do, but we're not going to do it because it's actually not available until after Girly merge. You can't extract maximal value from anything that doesn't exist. So first the network has to merge and then you can run this.
So that's the big overview of what you'll need to do to prepare for the merge. And so I don't know if we want to go into like a summaries ESAT guide to check how to do each of these items.
I'm not
in
even
there.
sure that Summer is ready. I actually like your prepare for the merge because it is so generic. We can just, as far as I'm concerned, we can just stick here and it will work for any guide that people have followed if they're willing to just, check with a guide as to what is my service file actually called.
Yeah.
So
let's dive in then. Let's see how we get started with running your own execution client. We talked about this previously, but let's go ahead. So if you are relying on Enfire, and we know that some people are, I believe the last poll that we did on that was like maybe 30 or 20% of the solo stakers were maybe relying on a third party for their execution data. So if you are right now relying, you will have to install and configure a new execution client. So if you use any of these tools or any of these guides to set up your machine, make sure to check them again. They should have a section on how to run your own execution client. And if they don't, just get in touch with us on Discord or on Reddit, and we'll try to help you set up your own execution client. One of the issue with running your own execution client is going to be the disk usage from that client's database, right? So it's not uncommon to see an execution client use more than 650 gigabyte of data to store its data on mainnet, for instance. So if you have a limited amount of disk space available on your disk, maybe you'll need to buy another one. Maybe you'll need to add another disk into your machine. Maybe you could use a different machine and have them both talk to each other on a local network. But you will have to install your own execution client and sync. And syncing that execution client, especially on mainnet, can take a few hours or days. So we suggest that you do that in advance, just to make sure that you have enough time to prepare and to change your configuration. And so I also suggest that you implement monitoring and alerting, just to make sure that you don't reach the point where you don't have any space left on your disk and you're not sure what to do next, right? If you've been pruning regularly, just keep doing it. As you see your disk space getting lower and lower, just keep pruning. A good strategy, if you're still using Geth, at that point, just before the merge, would be to prune just before the merge, so that you have plenty of time to explore different strategies to manage your data growth after that.
Can we point out a thing that Thorsten brought up to me that I had never realized before, that if you have a whole lot of memory, then your state grows much more slowly, which I found to be really, really handy.
if you use it, yes, you can set a cache parameter. This is a short-term thing. Geth is working, the Geth team is working really hard on changing the way that they store state, period. And so we expect that pruning will no longer be necessary sometime in the future. I am super confident it'll land in 2022, but it might not. Maybe that's a 2023 feature. I don't know.
It's hard to tell if it's going to be implemented for the merge, right?
It
That's
won't.
for sure.
I don't expect that. No.
Yeah.
Hell no. No, they need to be stable right now. They need to get through merge. They're not going to change their state storage engine while they're also changing these other things. Absolutely not.
That'd be a pretty risky thing to do.
That would be a bit risky. But I can absolutely see that landing very shortly after merge, like in the 6 to 12 months after merge. I can absolutely see that landing.
So let's talk about the execution client bandwidth usage. So after you set up your own execution client, if you're not running one already, you'll notice that you'll need more bandwidth, since it has to talk to a lot more peers, and then it'll have to download and then sync its chain as it's running. And so that might be some issue that you need to account for. But one of the most interesting thing that you should consider is running one of these other execution client. And we've been promoting client diversity pretty hard in the recent months, especially on the consensus clients. But execution client diversity is going to be important too after the merge. And so you should consider all of these different client, Aragon, Besu, Netamine. And we have the
Should
link
we maybe
to...
say why?
Yeah, go ahead, Thorsten.
Right. So why? Right? Geth works. Why wouldn't I? This is an insurance policy for you. The same way that getting out of supermajority clients in the consensus layer, it was an insurance policy where we don't have a supermajority client anymore on the consensus layer. Choose any you like, you're fine, right? So what happens if, so right now Geth has a supermajority. Let's say Geth is like 80% of the network. A supermajority, by the way, is anything 2/3 or greater. So meaning it by itself can go and finalize, right? So what happens if God forbid, this has never happened, Geth has a bug where an invalid block is declared valid by it. What would happen in that case is this chain would finalize. And now, when the bug gets fixed, there are no good answers here. Either you come back to the canonical chain, but now that's a surround vote, so your validator gets slashed. Ouch. Or you say, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to exit my validator. Great. Along with 80% of the network. You are going to be in a years-long exit queue. And you're going to bleed down to below 16 ETH. Or, third option, you rely on the ACD to bail Ethereum out in this case. Unfortunately, parts of ACD, all core devs, have already said our bailout days are well behind us. Nothing is too big to fail anymore. We will not bail out. We will not hard fork because of a bug in a client, no matter how big the client is. So expect a protracted battle during which your validator bleeds. What happens if you are on a minority client and it has a bug? Well, you're offline. Fix it, you're back online. Nothing bad has happened, right? The chain will even keep finalizing if it's below 1/3. If it's above 1/3, the chain will stop finalizing, slightly bigger penalties, but again, you're not stranded. I should also come back to, this is only in the case that there's this kind of a worst possible bug in Geth, and the Geth team have done an amazing job so far of never having one of these. They actually, a few years back, spoke about how big the pressure on them is and how much this contributes to their burnout, that they absolutely cannot have such a bug because it has such massive consequences. So you're helping yourself and you're helping the burnout of the Geth team if you run something that is not a supermajority client.
So all of those are very great point that should like make you at least consider running one of those minority execution client.
I want to step through these right quick. Aragon is an up-and-coming client currently in alpha. It already has 2 complete resyncs planned where they will resync from scratch. This can take a week with Aragon. So just be aware that that's coming. If you want to use Aragon, by all means do. It's a good client. Just because they're changing the way their database works in their alpha branch, they will need you to wipe the database and start over. And they have 2 of those events already planned. There might be more in future, but 2 are planned. Besu is stable. I've been running it on mainnet for months now as my main client. No issues. Nevermind, I would say, is stable. Little RAM hungry, but otherwise perfectly fine.
I'm
Hey, so-
personally go ahead, Fizz.
Oh, I was just gonna say I've been sort of holding off on aggressively recommending Besu. Is that something that you're more comfortable with now? I know you and I have had some back channels about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with it. I think for 2 reasons. One, I haven't seen any, maybe 3.5. One, I haven't seen any major issues with Besu. As I say, I've been running it as my main client now for months, and that's not just for staking. That's also for an RPC client that gets queried through WebSockets, that gets transactions sent to it like on the regular. Every few minutes a transaction goes through it. and it's been holding up just fine. 2, they have just resolved their RocksDB memory issues. So it's really quite low now as far as memory use goes. That's really nice. 3, I would say the Besu team has been extremely responsive in Discord and GitHub to bug reports. They're really good at jumping on this stuff and fixing it. So, just team responsiveness, I think, is important. And I feel confident there with Besu. It does grow at about the same rate as Geth, a little slower, like about 8 gig per week, and it cannot be pruned.
Even with their new storage engine?
Yeah, even with their new
Banzai?
storage engine. Exactly. It's not actually the state we're getting down in the weeds. It's not the bonsai stuff that grows. It's all the other stuff that grows. Now that they have state growth figured out with bonsai, they're going to look at the other side of the equation and see what they can do there. Right. But for now, it grows at about 8 gig a week. It can't be pruned. So if you run out of space, resync it is. I should also say with a 2 terabyte drive, that gives you 2 years of runway with any of these clients before you even have to think about space. Right. Yeah. So it's not that urgent, the sky is falling of an issue. If you have a 2 terabyte SSD drive, you're fine for years, by which time, who knows how we're storing state. It's probably be a completely different game.
Yeah. I didn't want to get too much into the weeds with Besu, but I do appreciate that recommendation. And I also really suggest that people get a 2 terabyte NVMe drive. It is really, I get the desire to save money, but your lost sleep is also worth money. So it does pay off in the long run.
It's a lot easier. You can fit into a terabyte, but you'll be pruning a lot and often. So, it's just a lot easier.
I see a few community questions, and maybe anyone can answer them. The first one is, if we fail to configure a fee recipient, where do priority fees end up?
That's an excellent question.
Our validator just not proposed successfully?
Right. The clients will, everything must have a fee recipient. Every block must have a fee recipient after merge. How the clients handle this is individual to the client. First, some clients will just refuse to start up if no fee recipient is configured. But even with that, you might have a situation where, say, you have a per validator fee recipient, right? And you just forgot to configure one for one of your validators. In this case, it's a client-by-client decision. Mostly the thing seems to be that, like, if we don't have a fee recipient, we will still propose the block, but we will set 0x0 as the fee recipient, the burn address. So there go your priority fees to the burn. You have just contributed to the value of Ethereum. Thank you. And you don't have that Ethereum.
You gotta burn it.
Gotta burn it. No, so don't configure a fee recipient if you like ETH.
Make sure to configure one, yeah. There was another question. Should we be removing the Enfire checkpoint line from our config files then?
No. So Enfire can still be used as a checkpoint sync. And in fact, it is highly recommended to do so. This is actually on the consensus layer. It is safer than not doing so. And this is what Enfire calls an ETH2 project, right? The Web3 project in Enfire, which used to be the Ethereum project, so the Web3 project, which is the RPC query, that can no longer be used as your as a connection from the consensus layer. You now need an engine API and a full fat execution client, as we had explained earlier. So short story, yes, do use Enfire for checkpoint sync. You can still do that. There's also, for Girly, there's a checkpoint sync available from the Ethereum Foundation if you don't want to use Enfire. And we have that, I think we have that pinned in the Girly channel. But do not use Enfire as your execution layer client. It doesn't have an engine API. You can't use it there.
This led us to the next question, which is, what is a checkpoint sync?
A checkpoint sync is where your consensus layer client goes to another fully synced consensus layer client and says, hey, do you have a recent week subjectivity checkpoint for me? If so, you sync from there, and then you backfill all the way back, right? And the clients do this automatically. What this means in practice is, instead of waiting 3 days for Sake early to sync, it is up in literally seconds and can start validating.
So it's a much quicker way to get your
It's quicker.
client
It's
started.
also safer, because long-range attacks against you are now impossible. So definitely recommended to do that, for your own sanity. If I think actually, honestly, the long-range attack is a little theoretical. It's been shown that it can be done, but I mean, somebody would have to control all your peers to pull it off. That having been said, just the sync in seconds or minutes thing is amazing.
All right, I think we're done with the questions that we have so far. If you have more questions, make sure to ask them, and we'll try to answer them as we get them. Let's get moving to updating your Ethereum clients. So as I mentioned previously, some of these network configurations are included with those updates. And as a general practice, it's always a good thing to regularly update your clients. The way to do that will be different depending on, like, if you use the guide, if you did it yourself, if you built from source, or if you use the tool. So it's very hard for us to kind of give you like this general approach that will work with every different kind of setup. But if you use the guide, make sure to check on the guide that you use. They often have like a section or an appendix where they'll tell you where to go and how to update your clients. If you use the tool, some of these tools have automated ways to update your clients. So just click next, and it'll update. And if you really don't know where to go, how to get your client updated, just get in touch with us on Discord or on Reddit, and we will happily help you with how to do that.
So the 3 big guides, Soma Esat, CoinCashew, and Metanol, they all have a section on how do I update my client.
Awesome.
2 of those also currently have a how do I get merge ready thing that you can use instead of Remi's thing here, or you can use Remi's, but just use their guide as to how do I actually update my client. And then Remi's guide here goes further into, and now what changes do I need to make to the startup parameters?
Yeah. And maybe I should also add link to all of these update or merge pride preparation guides to this page as well.
I think you just gave yourself more work.
Yeah.
Nobody here saying no.
All right. And I also added the link to all of these clients, and they should have a section on how to do that as well. Let's go to the next item here, using the new configuration options for your Ethereum clients. So here,
Can I just halt here for a second? There's a question here coming actually in general, not in the Validator workshop. Somebody's not following instructions. Can we talk about the possible DDoS attack on block proposals?
Sure, we could talk about it right now if you want to.
I want to keep it kind of short.
Yeah.
So I will first say, I don't see it as a emergency situation. And the reason is that there are other networks that are a whole lot easier to DDoS that haven't been, right? So to some degree, we can as a community, and we are, look at ways of how do we mitigate this, and just have that in the back pocket. And then if it materializes, do something about it.
Maybe we should explain what's the risk and what's the point of the attacker there.
There was a very loud Twitter thing that said major vulnerability detected, right? And basically what this, maybe a little bit overblown. Basically what this is, it says you can de-anonymize a validator. You can watch the attestations from a validator public key, and you can say, oh, it comes from this IP address. And then, of course, you know when they're ready to propose, because that's broadcast 1 epoch in advance. and you're like, okay, so now that they're getting ready to propose, I shall DDoS, distributed denial of service, the heck out of them over the following slots so that they are unable to propose. And then whatever juicy MEV was available or priority fees or whatever, I will snag that with my own validator and I shall propose next, right? For this to work, one, you have to have control of enough validators that you are actually next after that one. And then two, you have to have the tooling and interest in DDoSing people. The first one is a lot harder. Writing the tooling is maybe a 2-week to 2-month thing, right? Having enough validators under your control that you actually can profit from this, that's a lot harder. It's probably why we haven't seen this even on other chains where it's a lot more centralized than it is on Ethereum. So somebody was saying, can I do a VPN? Maybe, but that's really difficult. Like you need a VPN that's peer-to-peer friendly and allows incoming ports. We don't know yet which ones those would be. Guides would be welcome. If somebody's listening to this and says, I know exactly how to do that, please write a guide. There are other ideas that don't involve VPNs, such as you attest through one consensus layer client and you propose with another so that, you know, even if the one that you usually are testing through gets DDoSed, the one you're proposing through, which has a different IP address, isn't. This is all rather involved stuff. And I think at this point in time, we don't need to act on it. We don't need to deploy it. We need to act on it in a sense of, let's get our ducks in a row. Let's have options available and documented, whether it's this Sentry idea with I'm attesting here and proposing there, or whether it's community guides that say, I actually know of a really good peer-to-peer friendly VPN service that allows incoming ports and works great with Ethereum, right? And have these guides. And then just hang loose and see what happens on mainnet. Chances are DDoS attempts will not happen just because we haven't seen them in other networks where it's way easier to do. And if they do happen, then we have solutions ready that we can go deploy.
Yeah. So the risk is there, but solutions already kind of exist. But as we see these attack manifests, we'll be able to respond to them.
Yeah, so longer term, Ethereum is actually looking at a way to strengthen the anonymity, oh my God, I can't speak, of a validator and make sure that it's not so easy to know who is proposing next, right? So you can still know which IP address belongs, but you won't know who's proposing next, so you can't DDoS somebody specifically. That, however, will likely take years to get into the spec.
All right, I believe we are good to go here on our next point here about using the new configuration options, which relates to this new engine API that we've been talking about. So this new engine API is this new communication channel between your execution client and your consensus client, and you'll need to do some minor tweak to your config to make sure that your consensus client can talk to this new channel. And I mean, for some of these clients, all you have to do is change the port. And so it'll be very simple. But for some of them, you might need to change the actual flag value. So I believe some clients are now using a different flag name for this.
Lodestar, Teku, and Lighthouse are using a different flag name, and Prism and Nimbus have kept the flag name and are just changing the port.
So this is a minor change, but you'll have to do it. All right, so the next point is this Jwt token file that we've been talking about, which is part of the authentication for this engine API. So there's various way of doing it, of like creating the file and adding its value and then configuring your client. But here's a simple way. This way, you just create this file in a specific location, and then you just tell your client to use that file. So nothing very special. It's another configuration change that you'll have to do. And I don't know if I mentioned that, but maybe you want to wait before doing these configuration on mainnet
Don't do it on mainnet. Girly
So
only.
this is fine to do on Girly, but as we get closer to the merge, you'll have plenty of time to do these configuration changes on
So
your main
I'll explain
device.
why not do this on mainnet right this very second. And that has to do with how these clients here, Geth, Eragon, Besu, Nethermind, behave. Geth, Eragon, and Nethermind actually do open the engine API on mainnet. Besu does not yet, unless you force an override TTD. Which is you can do if you're that keen, but then you have to remember you did that and remove it again before mainnet merge. So I would say just hang loose for a couple more weeks. There will be a version of Besu that also enables the engine API on mainnet, and then you can get going. If you're actually using Nethermind or Eragon right now, then you can actually do this now on mainnet if you're keen, because they already enable the engine API on mainnet.
I believe the latest version of Get also changed this.
The
where
latest version of Geth also does that. They are now enabling the engine API on mainnet. Yes.
But there's some risk, and you still want to kind of avoid having to manage those risks.
Let Girly merge at least.
Yeah.
Before messing with mainnet.
Like there's no urgency to do all of these changes all at
Right.
once.
You can do that sometime mid-August very easily and not worry, you know.
The main one to be aware of, especially for mainnet, is running your own execution client. The other ones can wait a little.
Yep, 100%.
All right, so but let's keep pretending that you're on Girly here and you want to get prepared for the merge. So
that's a very good point. There was a point there. You need a PR. For Lighthouse, it is now execution endpoint, not execution endpoints.
I noticed that change, but it still works if you use the S here.
It does for now, yes.
For now, yeah.
For now, it does.
All right, so I was talking about this Jwt token file. So these instructions will create a the token file in this location here, and then you'll have to configure your client to use that new file. And so if you know how to modify your configuration option for each of your client, here's the different configuration flags that you'll need to use for each of them, and where to the location for that token.
So this goes right. If you're running with one of the three big guides, this goes into your service file. So there'll be something like, say, a geth.service or eth1.service or whatever it is called, right? And into this service file, into the exec start, that's where that goes. We will show that in a little bit. In a little bit, I think Remy wants to show how that works, or I can, either one. Where that goes with a Sommer Esat guide setup.
Maybe I could show it like with one of my guide for getting prepared for the merge on Girly. So like if you are running one of these systemd service, it'll look like this in your service file configuration.
Just part of the exec start, right?
Yeah.
And then you'll reload this with a daemon reload and then restart the service.
Yeah. So nothing fancy. Maybe you already did something similar previously, but that's the general gist of it. And as usual, if you need more support, if you need more help with that, make sure to get in touch on Discord or on Reddit. All right, so that's pretty much it for the Jwt token. Let's talk about the fee recipient address, right? So this is a little more complex, but we'll try to summarize it in a few words. So you need to configure a fee recipient address, right? So if you want to receive the tips that are going to be included in the block that you propose as a validator, you need to configure this. And there's different places where you can configure it. Some clients enable like a per validator key configuration. You can configure this on your validator client or your beacon node client and various places, right? So here's the general way to do it with your beacon node client here. So if you're using Prism, you can add this flag with this value. Don't use this value here. This is just a placeholder. You should make sure to change this address with an address that you control.
Yeah, if you send this to 0x0, you will burn these fees. So
exactly.
Don't do that.
So make sure to replace that address with an address that you control.
That Ethereum address that you control can be any Ethereum address, by the way. It can be a wallet, like a hardware wallet is a great choice, right? It can even be a MetaMask wallet or something like it. It can also be a contract. So if you're one of the few people that have a contract that splits this up between people or safeguards it, or maybe it's a multi-sig wallet, which is a contract, right? That absolutely works.
I didn't know about that, but thanks for pointing that out. And as usual, if you make those changes in your configuration, maybe you'll want to reload those change and then restart your client after that.
Yep. So
There's
that goes into exec start for the consensus layer client or with Lodestar for the validator.
Yeah. There's some privacy implication in using a fee recipient address. Like that address would be a forever link with your validator. So like if you want to maximize your privacy there, you could use the deposit address, which is already a link with your validator.
So the address you deposited from, right? Yep. Not the deposit contract, please. The address you deposited from.
Yeah.
As long as you still control that, right?
Yeah. So that's it for the fee recipient address. Like we could talk a little more about this, like how to do it for each client, or like which
we can also talk
support.
about MEV. Are you comfortable loading your PR here that you have for this? And then
sure. Let's go in the PR. I haven't checked it yet. There you go. All right.
Oh.
Is that a nice view? Is there a better view for this?
Is there a better view? Yeah, there should be a better view.
Should be a better view, right?
View file. Okay.
There you go.
Down. There we go. All right. Great.
I'll let you talk about this one because you know a little more.
So Flashbots has something called MEV Boost. Can you bring up the MEV Boost GitHub for a second?
I want to try if I can find it. This one, right?
That's the one. That is the one. Indeed, indeed, indeed. And let's just scroll down. We'll do a really quick walkthrough. We have a 1 hour thing on this, so that's linked. Watch that if you want to know everything. But in a nutshell, MEV Boost seeks to extract some value, mostly through arbitrage. It is a little proxy that runs alongside your consensus client, like your Lighthouse, your Teku, your Nimbus, your Lodestar, your Prism. And it connects to a relay, which gets blocks from builders. And then your consensus layer client just looks at this and says, okay, does that pay better than what my local execution layer client produced? If so, I shall use it. That's it in a nutshell. That's what MEV Boost does. It's like this tiny, tiny little piece of software that just proxies to relays. There is a larger discussion as to who runs the relays. Right now on testnet, that's just Flashbots. There is a desire to make that more distributed. A little bit out of the scope of this discussion today. So if we can go back to prepare for the merge. Okay. Take a look at their release page for current version whenever you get ready to do this, because they might actually have a binary file, right, which you can just wget. Right now, that's not the case. You need to build this with Go. And they will have a relay to use, which right now is not the case. There's one for Robston and Sepolia. There's none and for Kiln, but there is none for Girly yet, because Girly hasn't merged. You can't extract value from the thing that doesn't exist. So do this after Girly has merged, not before. And then it's really just, the first section here installs Go, which is a programming language, installs MEV Boost, copies MEV Boost to user local bin just for ease of use, because reasons. And then we'll create a systemd file. You see here, export MEV relay equals the relay URL. So whatever relay actually exists and will be published by Flashbots on their MEV Boost GitHub page. And then we create this service here. We're going to run this as the local user. So Somer, for example, likes to run everything as a specific user. It's good practice. I didn't do that here for a couple of reasons, mostly because MEV Boost is stateless. It doesn't save anything to disk, and it has no ports that are open to internet at all, only just localhost. So the risk here is absolutely minimal. I don't see a way that this can be exploited. So we're running it as the local user, which is also the way that CoinCashew runs everything. And then just move that in place, start the service. And then if we go down, configure your consensus and validator client, there's a number of things you need to set again. Again, that's your exec start for the consensus client and for the validator if this is a split consensus and validator setup, right? So for Nimbus, it's just one. For Teco, it's just one. For Prism, Lodestar, and Lighthouse, you need to make a change both to the consensus layer client and to the validator client service. And then just daemon reload and restart these services.
All right, that seems easy enough. I believe anyone can do this following these instructions. Let's reiterate that this will not work yet on Gurley.
It will not.
Since there's no relay. You'll have to wait until there's a relay. And where would someone watch the news for when that would be published?
If you can go to the Flashbots MEV boost page again and scroll down a bit. Yada, 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 further. Oh, I'm missing it. I thought it was in here. Up again? Where is it? They had a list of relays in here. There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
So I guess they will update this one.
Right, exactly. So just use the HTTPS whatever thing you see here, right? The dash Gurley, dash relays, that's all done for you. Just grab the actual relay URL here. So this
one, right?
That's actually not it. This one here, HTTPS 0xb12 and so on. You need the full one with that, with that hex bit. If you look at this, this is just builder relay Sepolia flashbots.net and doesn't have the hex authentication in front of it.
Yeah. So you need this whole thing.
You need this whole thing. Just copy that and make that your relay URL. We might stick the flashbots URL into the instructions once there is one, because that's probably the only relay that will exist for Gurley. So we'll just make that even easier and just have it in there, right? Right now, the instructions just say relay URL goes here. Next version of the instructions might just put that in there as an example. And then you can rip it out and replace it if you have your own relay.
Awesome. And I guess you could also follow on Flashbots Discord, all the announcements there.
For sure. You can follow the announcements. I'm sure that EthStaker Discord will make noise as well when this happens.
Yeah.
Okay, we are an hour in, and we have explained how to do it. Do we want to show how to do it?
Maybe we should show, yeah. Do you have a machine ready for that?
I actually do. Aha, we have one more question. When planning for the mainnet, would MEV setup on our validators take place after the merge takes place? Yes, probably. There's some discussion around this right now, whether there will be a automated quiet period so that you can set it up ahead of time, but then it will just sit around for like possibly just a few blocks or even just a couple days or so until we know that the network is finalizing, and then it'll go live. And there's nothing you need to do, but it's also possible that it just won't be available until after, and then you set it up. That's under active discussion right now. So let me just, what I need to do here, 1 second.
I'll stop my screen share here. But
I
if you
need to change my screen resolution so that it can actually be seen on the line. And because I have this idea that I need space, which then makes it completely tiny. Okay, Zoom meeting, share screen. We shall share the entire screen. Why not? Okay, there we are. Okay, I probably need your instructions in here somewhere, right? So I know what I'm doing. That's probably a really good idea. That's MEV boost. Remy Roy, there they are. Prepare for the merge.
So as you're reading this, I see a few more questions.
Go for those questions for sure.
Someone is asking, is there an estimate of how much you might be missing out on a per validator basis if you don't run MEV boost?
Oh, that's a really good question. So obviously we don't know. We know what MEV looks like on mainnet now with proof of work. We don't know what it will look like with proof of stake. It has to do with the amount of activity, etc., etc. Long story short, the predictions range from 10% on the low end to 75% on the high end.
So it's going to be a lot.
That's a lot. And to be clear, though, that's percent, not percentage points. So if you're getting a 4% APY now and you're getting 10% more, we're not saying 14%, we're saying 4.4%, right?
Yep.
But if it's 75% more, then now suddenly you're in the 7 dot something percent range for APY, which is quite good indeed. And that does not count yet priority fees, which come on top of all of that.
Someone's asking, go ahead.
What I was going to say is, as someone in Rocket Pool Discord said recently, what happened, first MEV was this thing that was kind of esoteric, and now it's a thing we can't be without. That's kind of where we are right now.
Yeah. Someone was asking also, is there any extra configuration I will be doing if I'm running the clients on 2 different machines?
Right. Yes. What you need to do in that case is you need to adjust these instructions. You need to have this Jwt token on both machines. And then this one here where you say endpoint localhost, that's not localhost now, that's the IP address of the other machine on your LAN. And then of course this 8551 needs to now be available outside of localhost. So you'll need to look up, how do I tell my execution layer client to make this available on 0000? So, to the entire network rather than just localhost.
All right, so I guess we missed a few questions on YouTube, but I'm reading them as I see them. So there's another question. Someone's asking, how is Aragon able to grow at so much slower pace than the other execution client, I guess? If someone with a 1 terabyte SSD wants to move from GEF to a minority client, will Aragon be the best one among the other minority client?
Okay, it's a really good question. I don't have a good answer. So first, how can Aragon grow so slowly? They basically use a highly optimized way of storing state. They do it quite differently from other clients, and that's how they do that. Secondly, is it the best choice with a 1 terabyte? Maybe. But I say maybe because Aragon have chosen to not compress their database inside their own client. They rely on the file system to do this, which means it doesn't fit into a terabyte actually, although it grows very slowly. And it barely fits and it would not be a good fit if you don't do any kind of compression. So now you could say, well, let's use a compressing file system, right? I could do a ZFS with 16K record size and an LZ4. I actually do have a test for that running right this very second. Somebody has done this. They just came into EthStaker Discord with this. I highly recommend, EthStaker Reddit with this. I highly recommend hopping onto that thread and having that discussion there because it's a good discussion to have. And what they found was after they turned on the ZFS compression, Aragon went from half a second per block to 2 seconds per block to to finalize it and write it into the database. That's a big change. It might still be fast enough, but that's a little worrisome, right? So I don't know at this point. I don't know how bad the performance impact is of having the file system compress it or using something like ZFS in the first place, which can impact performance. I don't know how this is with BTRFS. There is definitely discovery to be done. So long story short, if you want to try this, you will be on the bleeding edge of discovery.
All right. Someone else is asking, do I need to do anything special apart from this guide if I'm running a solo validator and a rocket pool validator in a hybrid mode on one machine?
That's actually a really good question. In that case, there's not much you need to do. Just let Rocket Pool handle all of this. They do everything we're talking about here. They are handling. On your solo validator, just make sure it has the fee recipient. That's it.
All right. I think we're catched up with the questions here.
Let's go through here. So we're going to create a Jwt token file. Whoops, am I copying? Let's do this. By the way, you can see here what happens when you're running MEV Beast. MEV Boost Beast, that's it, MEV Beast. MEV Boost early, it just fails because it doesn't know what a girly is, right? Flag provided but not defined, girly. Of course not. Okay. So that, and then we'll use OpenSSL to create this thing. And I think the way you're doing this, it'll actually show it to us.
Yep.
So that thing there, that's your JSON web token. It's just a string of random characters, right? And then we'll make this readable. This is now owned by root, so we'll make sure everybody can read it. So this works. There we go. Configure your execution client to use the token file. This is a Geth and Prism. So let's go into the file here. It's going to be an Etsy systemd system. I think Somar calls it the Geth.service.
Yep.
He does, for sure. So here we are, and we're just going to say at the end of this, we want to use a secret file. That one. Okay, maybe if I don't double up my dashes, it'll work better. All right, that should be all I need on the Geth side. Now I also need to do this on my Prism Beacon node here. And then while I'm doing that, I also want to do that thing up here, right? The Web3 provider. So I'll make both changes now at once.
Hello, no one is available to take your call. Please.
There you go.
Okay, so that's the secret. And then we need the, am I doing this right? Maybe. And then we need the Web3 URL, which I already have in here somewhere. HTTP Web3 provider, there it is.
So like I mentioned, you have to change the port. Now it's 8551.
Right, exactly. So now we're pointing at the engine API. Okay, so let's do that first and just verify that this worked before we take any further steps. So we do a daemon reload, and then we're going to do a restart of Geth, and we're going to check the Geth logs to just make sure that worked.
Yep.
Okay. Let's do a journal CTL FU Geth. Actually, I wanted to see, this is a little, it's not what I wanted. Dang. See,
FU should show you the real-time
it
logs.
does, but it doesn't show me that. It doesn't show me everything, so no, it just cuts it off a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know how to tell it to do more than this. So it's clearly running.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we have time to figure this out. If somebody smart can tell me what I want to do here, I basically want to see from the restart, I want to see more than these lines so I can verify that the engine API actually started. In the meantime,
we can assume it's started properly since we see it's running.
Well, yes, but it's always good to check, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna restart my Prism Beacon. This is a roundabout way of also making sure this worked, because now when I look at the logs of the Prism Beacon, I expect it to not complain about geth. If it tells me that it can get there, then we are good to go. Running node with peer ID, starting beacon node, starting gateway, waiting for.
So we want to see a message that says it's connecting to the
could not
execution
connect to
part.
execution endpoint. Connection refused. So this did not work.
So this did not work, right?
This did not work. That's why I wanted to see this, to see what was going on there.
Someone says you should add like -n like 1000 to see
Okay.
the geth like
Let's
reset.
try it.
Using one.
So bash n 1000, and let's pipe that through less.
Maybe without the f for the real time.
Yeah, let's try NU like that. Nope. N1000, N1000,
And
UGeth.
-u.
There we go.
Yep.
We can get there. 15, 16.
So maybe you have to go a little.
To go down a little bit,
Deeper.
16 something is where we should be starting here. There we are. Let's see what it's doing.
So at some point we should send a message.
Oh, I know what I didn't do. I think this is a fun one. Let's see. Does it tell me what version this is?
It should tell you on start, I believe.
110.18.
Yeah, so that's an old version.
Right. So what did I not do, I silly person? I did not update geth. I also didn't update Prism. So maybe I should have done that. That would have been smart. That way, geth actually has an engine API. So let's do that. So we'll do a quick, I think in Sommer, it's just a package. So this should bring in a new geth, hopefully.
I don't see the new geth package
I
there.
do not see a new geth package here. Do you?
If you type geth space version, it should tell you there's no -- with geth, I believe. It's just geth version. It should tell you which version of geth you're running. Yeah, you're on.
We still have the old one. So what we're going to do in this case, because it doesn't come in automatically, we are going to just shove it in there. Let's see, GitHub, go Ethereum. So I bravely skipped the update your geth part and promptly failed. As expected, really.
So if you want to
really?
the pre-built
Source code?
binaries, you can just click on the download page, right?
Yep, that's what we want. Hey, boy, it's thinking about it. I want a link.
Make sure to select the one for Win.
There it is. That's a link.
That should be a good link.
That's a good link. Let's go grab that and see what happens. So we're just going to wget that. Okay, there's a tar, and then we're going to unzip this, exvf geth Linux 110.21, which geth user bin geth sudo systemctl. So I'm going to stop geth. We're going to make sure this thing is executable, which it probably is, but we're just going to make sure, +x geth Linux and so on geth, that one. And then we're going to copy that geth Linux geth, this executable, into user bin geth. Permission denied, correct. Sudo would be amazing. Okay. So sudo is do as root, right? It's like when I say to Remy, make me a sandwich, he's going to be, yeah, right.
No.
If I say sudo, make me a sandwich, he'll be like right away.
And then I'll do it. Right.
Exactly. Okay, geth version 1.10.21. That looks better.
Yep.
Sudo systemctl start geth. Okay. And let's do our friendly journal control again, if I can find it. I could have just typed it and it would have been faster. And we'll go here, go up. Aha, this looks much better. So now I
Indeed,
see
yeah.
that we are in a hard-fork specification, that we have a total terminal difficulty. And
it should also say that your engine API is open.
It
like
should tell me that my engine
you
API is open. There it is.
the
You see
line,
that? HTTP server started, WebSocket enabled, HTTP services enabled, endpoint 8551. We're down here.
There you go.
Auth equals true. So that worked this time round. So now let's see. What do I actually call my Prism beacon? Which might just be beacon node version. Nope, it's not that. Beacon node version? Nope. Okay, sorry. This is we're doing it live.
It's all good. We have plenty of time.
Prism beacon.service. It is called beacon-chain. All right. Beacon chain version. That's Prism version 2.13. There's probably a newer one. So let's go figure that out. Prism, GitHub. And we want to see whether we have a release candidate. We do. So we got a release candidate for Girly and we do want this, right? So let's make sure we're running that. Assets. There is indeed one for Linux right here. We're just going to grab that. Copy link. wget. That one.
So depending on which different guide you followed, on which tool you used, or how you initially configured your machine, maybe you should be using a different process to update your client there. But
right. This is correct for the Soma guide right now, and because the PPA I'm using clearly doesn't have the update, I'm doing it manually, right?
Yeah.
That's probably on me. I'm probably not using the right PPA for Geth. And now for Prism, it's always manual. So sudo systemctl stop Prism beacon, and then make the thing I just downloaded, beacon chain and so on, 2.4, make that executable with a +X, and then copy that, sudo copy that beacon chain. Actually, let's just verify where it hangs out. I believe it's in user local bin, which beacon -chain. Okay, there it is. Copy that over, sudo copy beacon chain 2.4 to user local bin beacon chain. Okay, that's one. Now with Prism, I also have a validator, so I need to do that one. Same difference. I want the validator client. I'm going to wget that. And we're going to change mod that to be executable. There it is. And then we're going to just do a which again. It should be in the same location, but just to make sure, which validator. There it is, user local bin validator. So we're going to say sudo copy validator 2.14 and so on, user local bin validator. Ta-da. Correct. It is busy because I'm still running it. I didn't stop it. So systemctl stop Prism validator. Now copy it over. All right, I have new versions of this stuff. Let's just verify. Validator version. Beacon chain version. Ta-da. Sudo systemctl start Prism beacon.
And we'll be able to check the logs to make sure it's
and we will check logs
properly.
and make sure it's happy. So this is specific to SOMA. For other guides, these services might be called something else, and the executables might be in a different location. All right, just check your guide as to where these things are hanging out. Just see whether this is doing the thing here. Starting initial chain sync, processing,
And we just
connected
saw
to new
that,
endpoint
yeah.
8551 prefix power chain. So this time it works, right? So now you're seeing this is connecting correctly. I will just pretend that this was completely planned this way.
It was,
To show
yeah.
you how to troubleshoot, right? In case it doesn't work right away. This has nothing to do with being a little scatterbrained at all. And now we'll see the validator. Now, one thing about the validator, we're waiting for the beacon, so this is looking good. The next thing we need to do now is we haven't said anything yet about our MEV boost. Nope, about our fee recipient.
Nope.
So first we need a fee recipient address. So I'm gonna go to what's the name of the block explorer again? I have a
Etherscan.
EtherScan, that's the one. I have a momentary lapse of reason. And we'll want to see whether a remi.eth exists. Does. I don't know who remi.eth is. Is that you?
No, it's not me, but
Okay,
you should use remiroy.eth and then send
Okay.
all your fee recipient there.
You should always, 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 very important. Like that,
It's an Y at the end.
like
Remi.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so clearly Remy Roy deserves all the don't actually do this, please.
That deserves all your fees. No,
Yeah, all the fees. We're being giggly here. So let's I don't need that anymore. Let's go back here and we say for Prism we need to set suggested fee recipient. So I'm gonna go and do the Prism validator service sudo vi etc. Oh, by the way, do use nano. You don't have to use vi. You know, I'm used to it. That's all. So now we want the fee recipient at the end here. Suggested fee recipient. I'll type the T manually. And we want Remy Roy's address because he deserves it. There it goes. Okay, that looks good. No other changes. So sudo system.
And as usual, you need to reload your
Exactly. We're
configuration changes.
Daemon reload.
And then
we're
restart
gonna
the
do a
service.
restart. Sudo system control restart Prism Validator.
And we'll look at the logs to make sure it works.
We will. Beacon chain started. It is happily doing things. Fee recipient is not a checksum. The checksum address is and will be used as the fee recipient. We recommend using a mixed case address to prevent spelling mistakes. That's actually a really good point.
Yep.
I don't know that EtherScan shows me the checksum address, but you know, that is a good point.
Yep.
It is showing me what the recipient is, which is really nice. That's a good UX here. I don't think every client does that. So you can just verify, is that really correct, right? If I put this, just copy that and put that in here into EtherScan, does it come back as Remy
If you go to the actual page, yeah, it should give you the checksum one there. Like if you click on the copy.
There's the checksum one, so I could do that. And then I see it's remyroy.eth, so it's definitely going to a deserving person now, you know?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. If I wanted to change this now, I could do so, but I'm not going to. So let's pause here for a second. That was a whirlwind. We are, by the way, done. That was it. So not in the correct order, but that was it. We updated our Ethereum clients second instead of first. Very silly. Then we configured a Jwt Token File, set a Prism beacon to use 8551, configured our execution client to use the token, configured the Prism beacon to use the token, and restarted them. Once we had done that in the correct order, it actually worked. And lastly, configured a fee recipient. That's it. At that point, this is now merge ready. Do we have questions from the audience?
Yes, we do have a few questions. Let me have a look at the chat log here. Someone asked, can this JW token be set up now well in advance for the mainnet merge?
I think we answered that previously. The answer is yes. And your execution client will need to open the engine API, which is true for Geth, Eragon, and Nethermind on mainnet, but not yet Besu. Wait for 27.7 RC nothing, just general release on Besu, to have it also open its engine API on mainnet.
And my suggestion is you can do it now, but you might want to wait, and it might be less
Until
risky to
Gurley
wait.
has merged and you see that everything is indeed hunky-dory. Indeed. Any other questions?
Yes, someone asked, and if I want to stop validating, or if I do not succeed to migrate my key to my new VPS, can I recover all my ETH or not yet?
So this is a withdrawal question. So first, migrating keys. I think this triggered me just now. I have pictures of people getting slashed. When you're migrating, please make sure to delete the keys from your old machine before you import them on the new machine. I'm not kidding about this. We've had people, say, whatever, I'm not going to start the old machine. And then they did accidentally anyway, or somebody found it. It was like, what's this? What's this drive do? I'll just boot it and see. Yeah, not good. So delete it first so you don't get slashed, right?
Another question here. Someone
but wait.
asked,
The question,
go ahead.
the actual question was withdrawals.
Yeah. Sorry.
Can I withdraw now? No, you cannot. You need to wait for Shanghai Capella hard fork sometime 2023, probably the first half of 2023, for withdrawals to be possible.
Good point. So you'll need to wait. The merge does not implement withdrawal. You'll need to wait a little further.
It does not. You can, however, if you're done running your own validator, you can absolutely put this into the care of someone else, like say a block staking or something like that, right? And then you can take it away from them again. They're completely non-custodial. That's one option. There will also be the option to migrate it to a rocket pool if you're more comfortable with that kind of setup, or a little bit more hand-holding, right? That will become an option, but only after withdrawals are possible, not before. Yeah, and of course you can voluntarily exit, stop earning, and then just, after withdrawals, you'll get your money.
Sure, that would be a little silly, but you could still
Still
do
silly.
it.
There are other better options, but you could if you really wanted to.
Someone asked, can the fee recipient be an ENS domain?
Very good question. In most clients, no. I think in all clients right now, no. This is a per client question. So the clients could enable ENS lookup. This, of course, now is a little brittle because if ENS lookup fails, then where, Remy, what did we say? Maybe we need to bring Michael in here. On Vertigo, where do fees go when we can't figure out where they should go? They go to the burn address. That's right. So it's a little difficult to do that and still say to people, absolutely, you get these fees, because now you're reliant on the lookup to work, right? So right now, not implemented. It could be implemented by a client. I highly recommend, though, to do the lookup yourself once and then just put it in there so that you don't have that additional piece that can fail.
Absolutely. Someone asked if I'm using an IPC link for the Web3 provider instead of HTTP, will the JWT token still be required on mainnet?
Sorry, if I'm using what now? Oh, IPC.
IPC link, yeah.
IPC. I believe IPC is not required. However, here's the interesting part. I also believe that not a single consensus layer client currently implements IPC for the engine API.
So I don't know how you're using IPC right now, but
they are for the RPC query. But as far as I know, there's no consensus layer client that has implemented this for the engine API. So with IPC, you probably wouldn't need the token, as I understand it. However, I am not aware of any client that makes it available that way, or any client combination. The really, I mean, if you want to be on the bleeding edge of things, play around with it. But the easy thing is just create a Jwt token. It's not hard.
All right, we have a few more questions. This one is a little confusing, but I'll still ask it. Can one move earned ETH from several validator to form a new one before ETH generally can be withdrawn?
No, I know what he's saying. No, you cannot. I'll explain how it works after withdrawals. So we have a good idea of what withdrawals will look like. There is a spec now. The spec hasn't been adopted yet, but it's just getting tweaks. We have a really good idea of what it's going to look like. Expect maybe some of the numbers to tweak a little bit, but the overall shape of it we know, right? So what's going to happen is you will need to set an ETH withdrawal address. If you did so when depositing, you're all set. If you didn't do so when depositing, and you would know this because it's the ETH1 withdrawal address CLI parameter. If you didn't do that, then you didn't set one. Like over 80% of the network didn't. Well, at one point that was true. I think now anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. You're going to set an ETH withdrawal address after Shanghai Compiler. And then once that is set on your validators, your multiple validators, every epoch, 256 validators will be skimmed, and that will go to the withdrawal address. So if you have, say, 34 on all of them, it'll all get skimmed off, so they're back down to 32. You now have that ETH, and you can now take that and spin up a new one after withdrawals. So that's Shanghai Capella next year, not now.
Awesome. So I have a few more questions. Let me see where I was here. Someone's asking this one. Maybe I can answer this one. Will switching to a non-supermajority execution client require a complete rebuild? So,
yes, you will need to completely resync.
You will need a complete resync, but you might not need to build a new machine for that.
Correct. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Good point.
Yeah.
No, you do not need to build a new machine. Yes, you need to completely resync. So basically the way it looks like is you would tell systemctl to stop your geth. You would tell systemctl to disable your geth so it doesn't start again. You would remove the data there for it, varlib, go Ethereum, or wherever you have it, right? Remove it completely. You would set up a new service for your new client, enable that service, and start it. No other changes because all this stuff here goes to localhost 8551. That's still localhost 8551. That's it, right? And then you wait for the client to sync.
Right. So there's a few more questions. Hopefully, I won't be missing any of them. But here's a very hard one for you, Torsten. Can you give a 2-minute summary about what the engine API is and why it's needed? The hard part is a 2-minute.
We did that early when we started, so let's do it again. The engine API is the connection between the consensus layer client and the execution layer client. We are merging. That means we're now doing the interesting things, transactions, right? Sending ETH around, swapping ETH, doing DeFi and degen things are now happening with proof of stake. So therefore, I need an execution layer client that can do all these things. The consensus layer does this. It says which block is next. In order to be able to say that for something that has transactions, it first needs to know, is this actually a valid block? So when you're testing, you're now also not just going to attest, hey, the consensus layer works. You're also going to attest this block that was just proposed on the execution layer with all these juicy transactions in it. Is that actually a valid block? So that's one thing the engine API does for you. You go ask your Nethermind, your Aragon, your Besu, hey, this block we just got, is that valid? And it will come back with valid or invalid, or syncing if it's not ready yet, right? That's one function. The second function is, okay, you're proposing. Right now when you're proposing, you're just proposing, hey, I think this is what the consensus beacon chain looks like, and we're not actually doing any transactions. Now when you're proposing, you're saying, I shall propose this new execution layer block with all these juicy transactions in it and possibly some MEV. And you need the execution layer client to create that block for you. Was I within 2 minutes?
I believe you were close. I believe that was close. Someone just asked another question. I believe that's the last one that we have in the queue here.
So
Um,
in a nutshell, right? The execution layer and the consensus layer are the black bear and the polar bear, and the engine API makes them merge into a panda bear. How's that?
that's a good analogy. I like it. So this new question here is asking, so the engine API already exists if you're running consensus and validators, and you just need to get a token now? Question mark.
The engine API is new in these clients. So you need to update your client, and then yes, you just need a token, and then you need to point to the engine API. As we had mentioned earlier, the only client that doesn't currently enable this on mainnet is Besu. All 4 of them enable it on Girly. So as long as the clients are updated, yes, you already have an engine API. You just need a JWT token. You need to give it to them down here, and then point your consensus layer client, your beacon node, at the engine API, and you're set.
All right, so I'm going to ask which client uses the most bandwidth? Is it the execution or consensus client?
I actually don't know.
I don't know either. That's a good question.
Don't know.
I'm not sure why exactly you might want to know about that, but
maybe
the execution client
maybe you're
uses more right
wanting
now.
to split them. By the way,
Yeah.
splitting them, they do need really good latency between them because of this the need to check the block for attestations and the need to get a block for proposals. So you don't want them to be, cross
Too far apart,
continents,
right?
too
Yeah.
far apart. Yeah, like within a LAN is fine. Within like a data center in different availability zones is fine. You probably don't want them really far apart.
All right, so I'm gonna ask a quite technical question, but we'll just go through quite rapidly. Does Ubuntu 20.04 ships with Java? Do I need to install it for Besu? I'll answer that one. You need to install it. It does not ship it with Java, but there's like default packages that are very easy to use to install Java on Ubuntu 20.04.
Okay, great, thank you.
So that's for all the questions that we had. Maybe we could have a look at CoinKishu merge preparation.
Before you do though, I'm gonna show one more thing if you're okay with that.
Go ahead.
Let me just see where I stuck it. It might actually just be in here. I'm going to show how to update EthDocker. So I think that I'm in the right directory here. I have a modified one, so I need to undo that. Let me just see that this is running. EthDocker. Yep. So I'm going to undo this modification here.
If you want to keep it, you could just stash it.
And that's probably nonsense. I don't know what I did there. So I am on the main branch here, and I should have to only do 2 things, and we'll see how well that works. There's another one of those. We'll do it live. The update, which will now update the images and update EthDocker itself, but will not actually restart anything. First issue, it takes forever on my test machine. Fun. Okay, we will possibly come. Nope, there we are. Come back to it, I was going to say, but let's give this just a moment. So this is grabbing new things, and if everything goes well, it should actually switch me over to the merge get ready branch. So because we're on Girly Prata here, right? And it builds my clients from scratch again on my local machine. Okay. Nope, that did not work. Prata Girly, don't know why. If I can't get this, this is odd because I tested this, but if I can't get this to work, then I will, no, I cannot. I will just give up and do that another time. I have to figure out why this didn't work here.
In theory, you could just do this.
Well, this should have detected that I am on Prater and switched me over, and I tested that earlier, and clearly I broke it. So I am going to see why this is not working now and fix it. But in theory, it's an ethd update, ethd restart, and maybe we can demo that some other time when it actually is working again.
That's totally fine.
Yeah.
All right, what do you
Okay.
think about the showing CoinSkishu merge preparation
Guide?
list?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's show us a merge guide. I think we have it pinned here somewhere, right?
It should be in Discord somewhere. Yeah. Let me try to figure it out for you.
There it is.
So this is going to be very similar to the guide that we showed you earlier, but maybe more targeted for people who use CoinSkishu's guide to set up their own
Exactly.
machine.
So he's got this, upgrading and then follow the instructions for updating the EL and updating the CL. So the execution layer and consensus layer clients, he has specific instructions here in his regular guide. That's what we said earlier, right? Follow these, then create a file. He puts this at /secrets. We had it, I think, at varlib Ethereum, same difference. Make it readable. You see here is creating this with the same command. He's using a change mode 644, which is the same as a +R, so basically make it readable. And then we're going into update startup commands. He's actually doing this for CoinCashew and Soma Esat. So we got the beacon chain service, the validator service, the ETH1 service, or he's got different ones here depending on which one you're running. Recommend referring to the official Soma Esat merge updates when available. Exactly. And then you see here we're adding things to the beacon chain, execution endpoints and secrets for the various different clients here. And the suggested feed recipient here, obviously not 0x000. It's actually interesting that he doesn't point out that this needs to be adjusted. So
maybe we should tell him. Yeah.
Please make sure that this is not the bird address. Yeah. If you really don't want the money, just give it to Remy. Validator client changes, same difference. Execution layer changes. This actually, I think, isn't necessary. Like he's doing all kind of minor enabled. This actually, I don't think is necessary. I think you just need these three here for Besu. Geth is the authority secret. Don't think we need that one if we're doing localhost.
I don't think you need the vhost, no.
I don't think you need that. This is Aragon. Not sure we need engine, but we might. This is Nethermind. He's doing it like this. I actually have it slightly differently, but I think this would work. You probably don't need this one if you're just going to localhost. 127 would be fine, right? So again, you can do it many different ways. None of them are really wrong. They're just different. Yeah, that was it in a nutshell. Same thing. No
what about
MEV
the
boost
extra
instructions
stuff down there?
Improve client diversity. Participate in the upcoming merge. We like that. Switch to our minority EL CL. Configure MetaMask to use your own node. Very nice. No more Enfire outages. Upgrade node storage to 2 terabyte. Good idea. Prune your execution layer node. That's specific to Nethermind and Geth. Absolutely do that. You can do an Ethereum metrics exporter with Grafana and test on the testnets.
Maybe something we did not mention. If you're not trying to run a test machine on Girly Prater right now, maybe that should be a suggestion.
Yes, that's a good idea. Absolutely. Actually, I'm keen to get this going. If you will bear with me, I'm gonna do this manually. Check out merge, get ready. So the auto switch didn't work. Probably killed it this morning, but we're gonna try this one more time, this time by manually switching to the merge get ready branch and seeing how it behaves. Okay, there we go. Whole bunch of text. Basically, we come from a pre-merge setup. My configuration file .env has been changed. Tells me to decide whether to use an env boost, and that my EL node variable has been adjusted. So let's just take a quick look at what changed. I can see I have a fee recipient in here now. I still have my old setup here with Lodestar and Besu. I don't have an override TTD. I don't need it for Girly. MEV boost is currently false. So in Docker, you would just set this to true, set MEV relays to the, not the Robston, the Girly relay, and add MEV boost YAML up here. And then that's it. That's all that's needed. My network is Girly. And with that, I should be able to do an SD restart and verify that I am now in a merge-ready configuration.
For those people who are following along, this is for users who are currently using EthDocker.
Correct. That's right. So we're just going to take a look at the consensus client. And this is a Lodestar in this case. So this should now, after it loads its database, it should show me that it's connecting to the execution layer client. I take a minute for it to start up. B2B2, searching peers. Interesting, Lodestar might not actually output anything. It's not complaining, which is good. And then I got my execution layer client here. And that's currently looking for peers. So this is a Besu. I should see that it started the engine. Do I see that here anywhere?
I see it. It says like starting
There
JSON
it is.
RPC. Yep.
On 8551. Exactly. So there's my engine here being started. And then I can look at my validator for Lodestar. And that's currently syncing, which is correct. So it did that thing. So the whole idea behind EthDocker is that a lot of this is automated. You can still dig into the details, but a lot of it is automated. Okay. Should I stop sharing, or do we have anything else we want to show?
I think that's pretty much it. We
Maybe
might have a
one
few more
last lightning
questions,
round of questions, and then we're done.
and then I believe we have a few other points in the agenda. But let's see if we have any questions that were not answered in the chat. Someone suggested that in all these guides, they shouldn't put the burn address in the example for the fee recipient address.
Well, this is a really difficult one, right? This had been discussed as well by the client teams who said, should we default to the burn address, or should we default to remiroy.eth?
Yeah.
And for political reasons, it is way easier to have a default of burn address and tell people don't do this than defaulting it to a person. If I actually say in your guide, right, it's remiroy.eth, and then in CoinCashew's guide, it's coincashew.eth, and in my guide, it's yorikdown.eth, etc. And that's the default. And I tell people, go change this default. Well, if they don't change it, now the Ethereum goes to me personally, and now it is. And even if we say, well, that should go to like a DAO or a community or whatever, the political fallout is insane. And now you're going to have people coming after them saying, you got my ETH, give it back right this very second, right? Who wants to deal with that? If the default is burn address, at least we don't have the political difficulties. We still have the problem of the ETH goes to the wrong address. Don't set the burn address, please. All right, next question.
I think we only have one left here, and I'm not sure I'm fully understanding it, but maybe you can help me with it. What are the pitfalls when syncing the beacon node with another synced beacon node and using a weak subjectivity checkpoint, block hash, and epoch? So I mean,
I
there's not many
actually haven't
pitfalls.
done that. I think they're asking if they want to dig deeper. You can specify a specific block hash and specific epoch when doing this, other
Yeah.
than just using whatever's latest. I don't think there's particular pitfalls. I have to admit I haven't done that. I just sync to whatever was my latest subjectivity checkpoint.
I don't think there's
available.
many pitfalls there. I mean,
Yeah, but
you just do it. It works or it does
if
not.
you want to dig deeper into that, that's probably deeper than either one of us can go, and the client teams are the right people to ask about, how that's implemented and what you should do there.
Yeah, I believe we're pretty much done, and I'll give it
Do
back
we have anything
to,
else on the agenda?
Yes, we do. I believe we have a pup that
Oh,
Enfire is
POAP.
going to talk about.
Oh, yeah. All right, we needed to leave time for the POAP. That's very important.
Of course, it wouldn't be a community call without one. So let's see here. Let me switch over. And that didn't quite work, but that's okay. Let's try this again. There we go. Okay. How do I get this over to? Okay, so now, sorry. The instructions to claim today's POAP are on the live stream. So we're going to go in a slightly different method. We've used this before through the EthStaker community. We're going to use it again for this workshop specifically. And that is to claim today's POAP. What you'll do is send at least one USDC or DAI to EthStakerWorkshop.eth. That can be sent either mainnet, Polygon, Optimism, or Arbitrum. You have 24 hours to make that transaction, starting from today at 4 p.m. UTC to tomorrow at 4 p.m. UTC. And what will happen is after that 24-hour period has elapsed, we will collect the wallet addresses that made the minimum 1 USDC or DAI donation, and then we will put up a POAP.delivery distribution of those wallet addresses to claim today's Validator workshop POAP. The reason we're doing this is twofold. One, this is a form of Sybil resistance, so we can, beyond a certain shadow of a doubt, we can definitively say that the people that are receiving these POAPs are it's going to be soulbound. And also, these calls specific and outside of the community calls require a little bit more work. There's a little bit more technical detail. There's a little bit more dedication. There's a little bit more effort put into this, and we want to show both Yorick and Remy our appreciation. And portions of the donations for today's POAPs will be distributed amongst them. The remaining funds will be distributed amongst public good, various public goods that will be announced on EthStaker.cc. Again, those who were not able to attend today's live stream, the recording will be published on the YouTube, EthStaker YouTube in full. And just a couple quick community updates. It is not too late, those who are running mainnet validators, to participate in the Ethereum update and upkeep challenge. You do need to pre-register in order to participate. Those full details are at EthStaker.cc. And we do have an upcoming merge call for Gurley. Bankless is hosting that. We will be helping and supporting those details soon to follow. Again, EthStaker.cc, all of that can be found. This is, and just a real quick reminder, this is a series. So if you missed today, if you meant to attend today's workshop, if you have a very specific burning question where the recording won't work for you, please reach out to us in the Discord in the meantime. However, this is a series. We'll be doing multiples of these calls leading up to the merge. We do not have those dates published yet. However, those all will be published on EthStaker.cc. That's it from me. I will give it back to Remy.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you guys next time we do another one of these workshops.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks again. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.